Well, if we keep that in mind, that love is sacrificial. Love is sacrificial. Or are you having to be sacrificial? Oh, then you're feeling love. I think about my mom and I were just talking about my sister-in-law, Flower, and my brother, Fred.
Is that her girl name?
Her name's Flora, Flower. I call her Flower. Floor. The F lady from Ecuador. That's not bad. I call her Flower. Anyhow,
better than that than lady from Ecuador.
Yeah, that goes. That goes TBN. They can't go there now. Anyhow, they have a child. Most of you know. And that child has leukodystrophy. And he lays in a bed. And the most you can get from that child really is a smile or a laugh. To make you feel good. Everything about that relationship is making that kid comfortable. Making that kid not be in pain. Making that kid have some quality of life with his limitations. He's never going to graduate from kindergarten and wear the little hat and walk, and you get to point and say, that's my baby. That's never going to happen. He's never going to, go to prom and you take a picture and put him on Facebook and say, there's my daughter. Those things that are in our love relationship that really feed us instead of them. You're never going to have that. But you'll see people who really learn what love is. Love is staying up all night when you're exhausted, rocking back and forth, an 11-year-old kid who's way too big for you even to hold. Wow. Love is staying in the hospital for days and days and days, and then 2 weeks later doing it again because he has to go back to the hospital. Love is sacrificial. And we get caught up in what the world thinks love is, that fuzzy love, or somehow we better feel kind of good about this. Or it's not really love, it's not really good. What about me is what we say all the time in our relationships. And love doesn't say what about me, it says what about you. And so in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, which remarkably is called the love chapter, and some of you probably, like me, were made to memorize it when we were young, I'm just going to read some things that love is, that sometimes we forget. I'm going to start in verse 4 when it's just talking about, here's one I fail at almost every day. Love is patient. Well, let's just put it down because we all... I'll steal a joke from Joan Rivers. She used to say, who's that lady who has diamonds? Elizabeth Taylor, when she was chubby, she would say, Elizabeth Taylor is so fat, she stands in front of the microwave and screams, hurry. But that's me. I stand in front of the microwave and go, I think that takes a long time. And that's the microwave, people. I seriously, 3 minutes at work, you're making your lunch, and I got like 20 minutes. I'm like, it is too long. I do not have patience. And that put me in a relationship type of situation. I could get really short, really fast. Mm-hmm. But real love is patient. Real love lets things happen to them over and over and over again without it bothering them. That's what patience is. Where you just keep taking it and it doesn't even bother you. Now some of us have the fake patience where we know, and I have it, I'm a teacher. We're full of fake patience. Honey, sit down. But in my head, I want to grab the child and smack him around or something. In my head, I'm not as patient as you see me when I'm in the hall. Oh, let's not use that language. We act patient, but we really aren't patient. But if we're in love, we will be patient. Love is kind. Man, kindness goes out fast in relationships, doesn't it? I remember me and my sister, and I love my sister very, very much. And I've always loved her. But she was my sister. We would get in fights, and she would lay on her bed and kick me. And I had to get to her to smack her in the face, because we're fighting. I would get kicked in the face. Kick, 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 kick. Finally, I'd break through, and I'd smack her one good. And you know what she would do?
Kick you again?
No. Mom!
Are you the oldest and she's the youngest?
No, she's the oldest. Oh, and then my mom would come up and she would say, she smacked me in the face. And I'd be like, she kicked me. And she was like, you didn't have to come over here. And somehow I'd get smacked. Love is kind. Love doesn't kick your sister in the face. Doesn't smack her in the face either. Love says kind things to each other instead of mean things. Love doesn't, oh here, I'm going to give it to you. You ready? This is the Holy Spirit for someone here. Love doesn't have a tone. Let me tell you that. You know the tone you can have. You can even be saying something not even that bad, but you got the tone and everybody knows. See, love doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, and it's not proud. I think all of those should go together. When you're proud and someone else gets glory, you get envy, right? You want to boast and say about all the stuff you did. But love wants to talk about the stuff other people did. Love wants to examine and uplift other people, not us. It's not rude. It's not self-seeking. It doesn't easily get angry. Those all three, I think, go together too. We're self-seeking, so someone gets in our way, and we become rude and angry. I see people in the store, and as the years go by, who are ruder and ruder and ruder and angry at you. This is me in the store. I'll be pushing my cart, and someone will like jump out in front of you without saying excuse me, and you like maybe you touch them or you just get close, and then they'd be like all talking off at you. You know what I mean? They get all mad at you because it's their whole world is a circle around them. You broke the bubble of their world, and so anger comes, and we can see it in them really good, but the finger points back at us. Because we have the same thing. We get angry really fast too if you burst our little bubble. And we can become rude really fast too. But that's not love.
I gotta make sure they're not rude.
I missed what you said.
I said, whoever's stomping like that, I'm gonna go push this guy. I have patience. I go, I'm gonna make sure they're not rude.
Love doesn't keep any record of wrong. I am the best at keeping a record of wrong. I don't know about you guys. I can tell you.
Give the litany? Do you
Yeah,
tell
like if
somebody
he
what
makes
they
me
did?
mad, I'll be like, come on, you remember this. And let's go back to the first year of marriage and let's go back through and second year and it's
And
hard.
I can't even remember last week, and she wants to talk about 33 years ago.
I hear you, brother.
I
I hear you.
Now love doesn't do
I
that.
would say
Why?
that must have been your first husband.
Love doesn't do that. Why?
Because when you forgive,
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
real love really forgives. And when you don't really forgive, you keep a record of wrong. When bitterness is really there, you got a record of the wrong. Because you need something to mumble over while, you're driving alone in the car. And I'm thinking that and you just refresh that
bury
list.
it, and
You
somebody
make sure you
pulls it up
make
again.
sure you know it. Because that's your weapon. That's going to keep you safe. You don't want to be vulnerable like love makes you and forgiveness makes you. And let me tell you, love and forgiveness, they do make you vulnerable. So you want to protect yourself because it's all about you. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects and always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. I always say, I used to rejoice in evil. I'm going to tell you about it. When I grew up, I did not steal. I'm very happy to tell you I was a non-stealer. I was way too afraid to steal. Then my mom would knock me out if I stole, and I never stole. But my friends did. And I would just place my order. I had Tammy Belch. I had Kim Broderick. They could steal like you could have. I wouldn't even go in the store when they were stealing. I was way too holy for that. I would stand on the corner and say, get me a Snickers. See, I would delight in the evil, right? I'm not going to participate. I'm a Christian. But I sure did eat the Snickers when they whipped it out of their pocket. I said, give me one of those big marathon things. You have to stick it all the way. Do you remember those big giant marathon?
Yeah.
I never asked for that because, that would have been
You're
too
not
hard
you
to
when
get.
you're hungry.
Yeah, I know. I usually ask
You
for
when you're
Snickers,
hungry.
but that's delighting in evil. Sometimes we can see that in our lives. Somebody's doing something wrong, and we sit around and we want to talk about it. And we all kind of feel good about talking about this thing. Really, that's evil. But let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about that. sometimes Christians, we can just get caught up a little bit too much in the past, and you can sit around and everybody will talk about who was the most evil, and they kind of have the smile on the face like, I was the most evil. You know, there's a little bit of delighting in evil.
They're smiling because they're showing their witness and how much Christ has changed them now.
It can be. It definitely can be, can't it? And it also can be.
You said that with a straight face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be. It can be. God took me from this place to that place, but a lot of times it isn't. It's just that little bit of delight that we get in the evil.
Are you listening, Eden? Mm-hmm. You're distracted. You're distracting people over there.
I'm not distracted. I'm listening.
Oh,
no, I know. It's her.
Always hopes and always perseveres. That's the last one. Love perseveres. It never quits on the person. It keeps going and going and going and going and going. It's not going to quit. It's going to be there again when they turn around. That's the hardest one. Because we want to quit. We want to quit all the time. I've been married 32 years. I've wanted to quit 32,000 times. For sure. You can think how long you've been married. There's times you want to quit. Now, my mom and father, of course, never, because they have this holy marriage. I don't want to think about that.
It's like Abraham.
Right. But other people, they want to quit, and then we see them quit even, don't we? We watch them walk away from each other.
Yeah.
How well that turns out
I'm not
usually.
happy.
Yeah, we grew apart. We're two trees, but you were in the shade and I was in the sun, so I grew more than you. I think I actually heard somebody say that.
Wow.
Love is how we give grace to other people. Let me tell you, Jesus told us to do very few things. He really didn't have a long list of stuff because he knows how stupid we are. He only gave us a couple things. And really the number one is love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, right?
Yes.
And number two, love your neighbor as yourself. And then they say, because they want to get it right, who's our neighbor? That's not why. They wanted to narrow it down so they would only have to love a very few people. And so he tells the story to them. And he uses the most awful person they can think of, the Samaritan, right? He uses that person as the good guy in the story. In the story, there's a man, he's walking, he gets beat up by robbers, he gets stolen everything, he's left on the side of the road. And the first person who comes by is, the pastor of the big 4,000 member church down the road, and he's walking, and he's got his new suit on, and he's going to an evangelistic meeting, so he don't have time for you. He maybe would say a little prayer over you. I hope somebody with the gift of healing comes by to heal you. But I got to get to my meeting. And the next person who comes by is someone very pious, a priest who's saying his rosary as he's walking down the street, and he's trying to be everything he should be, and he looks over and says, "Oh, you'll make me unclean, I can't go by you," so he walks by him. And the Samaritan comes, and he has a horse. I always like to add horses to everything I do. and he gets off, and he bends down, and he picks up the person, and he wraps up his bandages, and he puts him on his horse, and he walks. It might have been a donkey, but I prefer it to be a horse. And so he walks with him all the way to town. He takes him to the inn. He leaves him there with some money and says, and if it costs more than this, I'm cheap, so this one really blows me away. If it costs more than this, I'll come back and pay whatever it is. I would, maybe if I could do even all of that, if I could. I think I'd say, if it costs more than this, charge him. I think I would say that. But they said, no, if it costs more than this, I'll even pay that. And he's the Samaritan, and they hated them. Yeah. They thought they were unclean. They thought they were evil. They thought they were everything that they didn't want to be. And then he got to say to them, which one acted like a neighbor? And they had to, it probably was like puke in their mouth. They were like, the Samaritan. And he says, go and do likewise. How much more then if we're in a relationship with the person? How much more then should we have love for the person if we are in a relationship with them? If they're our husband or our wife or our brother or our sister or our aunt or our uncle or something, or your mom or your dad or something else like that. We should be showing that kind of love to them. The kind of love that the world looks at and doesn't understand. After we talk about love, we have to go to the next thing, which is forgiveness. Forgiveness. Have you, think right now, forgiven every single person that you should forgive? Or when I talk about this, if somebody pops to your mind who you know you haven't forgiven. A lot of people, when you talk, they'll tell you someone pops to their mind who they haven't forgiven. But Jesus says this, as you forgive others, that's how I'll forgive you. Now, some people get complicated with that. And I've had a lot of people come up and ask me and say, well, does that mean if I die and I haven't forgiven someone, then I'm going to go to hell? Do you think that's true? No, because salvation isn't what he's talking about there. He's talking about our relationship with him, our fellowship with him, right? And if you have unforgiveness in your heart, you are not in fellowship with God. You have iniquity. You have something that's in the way of that relationship. So, he can't forgive you when you won't forgive other people. You have to forgive no matter what. No matter what that husband's done, no matter what that wife has done, no matter what that parent has done, no matter what that aunt and uncle has done, no matter what that person's done, you have to forgive. Because you will never be so right that you couldn't possibly be wrong. There was only one person who was so right that he couldn't possibly be wrong, and you know his name was Jesus Christ, and he hung on the cross, and they did all this evil stuff to him, and of course he didn't forgive him. Wait, he did forgive him. He forgave him, and he was 1,000% innocent. I'm going to tell you, not very often is one person 1,000% innocent, and the other people just all wrong. Usually there's a little bit on either side. Usually there's a little bit on either side. But doesn't matter. Even if you can say, no, my situation, April, I am 1,000% totally right. They are totally wrong. You still got to forgive them.
Yeah.
Because that's the example. And when do you forgive them? Now here's the important thing. And if you learn this in your life, you will have a life of grace. If you learn this secret, you're going to have a life of grace. So listen to this. You forgive them before they do it. When did Jesus forgive you? After you were born and you were 16? And then he said, oh, no. Did he forgive you when you asked him in your heart? No. Every single sin of every single person was forgiven when he died on the cross. Now, all you do is apply it to your account, right? It's there. The forgiveness is there. He doesn't whip up a new batch for each person. All the forgiveness is there. If you have a marriage where the person is forgiven already, you got a pretty good marriage. Because no matter what they're going to do, you already forgave them. And when we do marriage counseling, we always have them write forgiveness letters to each other. Write a forgiveness letter saying, I forgive you, well, no matter what you're going to do. Well, now, April, that's just going to give them a license to do lots of bad stuff. Listen, they don't need a license. They're going to do lots of bad stuff.
That's right.
Well, that's our relationships. Things are going to happen. But that's what God gives us, right? He says, I forgive you. Boom, you are forgiven. And you know what they said to Paul? Well, you know what that's going to do? They're going to all run around and do a bunch of bad stuff. And Paul said, of course, God forbid that they would do that, but doesn't change what grace is. See, when you take forgiveness and love and you mix them together, that's forgiveness before they even did it. Because they have grace. And then when they come to you and say, will you forgive me? You say, I already did. Never would you say, no, I don't. Wesley and I were first married, and I grew up in a family where it was very forgiving. So I never heard, no, I don't. And me and Wesley got in a fight, and we were just in our first years of marriage, and though I said, I'm sure it was his fault, but I said I was sorry. I said, I'm sorry. I might not even have meant it, but I said I'm sorry, and he said, I don't forgive you. I almost fell out of the car. We were in the car. I was like, you can't not forgive me. He was like, yes, I can. We had a big fight about whether you can not forgive somebody. But you can't not forgive somebody if you're following Jesus Christ. If you're living a life of grace, the very essence of grace is that you forgive them. Oh, isn't it nice to be in a relationship where you're forgiven? I had that relationship with my mom really good. Sometimes we irritate each other. Sometimes we have arguments. We don't really get in fights, I wouldn't say. But I will, if I call my mom and say, I'm sorry, we went out to eat, maybe we talked, I said something harsh, I would say, 100% of the time she says, oh, that was nothing, don't worry about it, I don't even forgive you for that because you don't even need to be forgiven. All she worries about what? Is how I feel about it, right? That's what she's concerned about. She's thinking, are you worried about what I'm thinking? Don't you worry about what I'm thinking, because I'm not thinking nothing. And I try to be that way too with people, because it was my example. Already forgiven. You're already forgiven. It's already not a problem, because I decided a long time ago that there wasn't going to be any problems like that. Now, sometimes you have to fight your own nature. Sometimes you have to fight your own insides for that. But that's the point to be at. You know, that takes away the drama. It's gone when you're already forgiven. Also, you don't need a person to ask you for forgiveness to forgive them. You can be free. You can stand before God with forgiveness in your heart and be free no matter what they're doing out there. They might not even know they're forgiven, but you've already forgiven them. That takes love and puts it into a real palatable place in your relationship. And when they come back and say, will you forgive me? And you say, I already have, don't worry about it. I don't want you to even think about it. And all those, they think this is a different person. This is a person who's showing me Jesus. Because that's what Jesus says to us. Don't worry about it. You're not under condemnation. So often when we go to people, we ask them forgiveness, we get under condemnation. How about this one? I forgive you, but... Well, yeah, you're right. This relationship's patched up. But, if you say but, you didn't forgive him. If you say but, you don't know what grace is. You haven't understand what a relationship is supposed to be like. A true relationship that will last forever. Now, in relationships, people can be people, and sometimes you need borders. Sometimes you have to have things that will make sure that people don't get hurt or things like that. Borders are not bad. I've been in ministry a long time, and people will sometimes be like, ooh, that person called and I talked to him for 3 hours and blah, 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 blah. Oh, and it was real long. And then they'll say, well, you never talk to anybody for 3 hours. I never do. I have a border. It's called, I'm not talking to you for 3 hours. It's not grace, love, or anything else. I'm not a phone person. I'm not talking to you for 3 hours. And this is what I do. I don't care who you are. I will talk to you. I will hear your problem. I will pray with you. And then I will say, okay, I'm going to hang up now. I'll continue to pray for you. If you keep talking, and I have had people keep talking, then I do this. All right, love you. Sometimes they call back. I answer it. Hello? Oh, you hung up. I said, yeah, you weren't listening. I said, well, the phone call's over. I prayed. I love you. Call back later a different day. I'm done today. All right, bye. I'm not saying that to be cold or mean, because if you're on the phone for 3 hours doing this, are you there? Are you there for the person? Are they getting grace and love from you? No. I'd rather be there for the 10 minutes I know I can, and then be gone. Then, they probably pretty much told you it all in 10 minutes. I'm much better in person, but not too much better. I'll cut you off there too. You know, in all the years I've had ministry, and I had that border, I have never had one person get really mad at me. They call back in a week or two, and then they start to learn. I'll say, like, okay, well, oh, are you getting tired of talking on the phone now? I'll be like, yeah, I'm tired of talking on the phone now. It usually ends up making the relationship better instead of worse. If you have a parent who is verbally abusive to you, then you can stop living in a verbally abusive world with that parent. Simple. I counseled a lot of people on this. If you're on the phone and they say something verbally abusive, you say, okay, Mom, well, I'm going now, bye. If you're in the house and they say something verbally, you don't say, now whenever you're going to say something verbally abusive, I'll be leaving you. No, you just say, okay, thanks, Mom, okay, we're going.
Right.
They will learn. Hey, when I start talking like that, they leave. I don't care if you're there for a minute. Hi, Mom. Bye-bye. Oh, okay, well, we only came by for a minute. Bye. Leave. Set up the border. You don't have to listen to that. If you have a spouse who's being abusive to you, physically abusive, I don't have good perseverance for that. I'd be like, goodbye. But even then, you have to set up those borders too. No, you may not talk to me like that. Not to get in a big fight. Guess what you do? Same thing. Doesn't mean you're ending the marriage. Just walk out the door. Say, okay. Go to your friend's house and spend the night. Go to your mom's house. You don't go to your mom's house or your friend's house to tell them about them. You know, the same thing when you're doing those borders. If you have parents that need borders, you're not leaving and calling your sister. Like, you know, she started. I was only there a minute. No, that's not going to help. But you just set up simple borders. Borders that pretty soon people realize, oh, this person isn't going to stand for this anymore. They're not going to live this way anymore. Those borders can help you with everything you do. Marriage needs borders. I don't know. In our marriage, we have a border like Wesley doesn't go out with women. I don't go out with men. It's a good border. It stops you from having affairs usually.
He goes out with me all the time.
You're not a woman.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He does go shopping with you guys.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's because he's half dead and that doesn't matter anymore. But when he was young, we had that really good.
He did try to do it in numbers,
Just
though.
the half
Be
dead
out
part
with
of me
two
goes
women,
up.
one to hold them up and one
What?
to mess around with.
When we were young, though, I'm
I need
serious.
three.
We that was a very important rule. And when we counsel people, we tell them, don't be going to lunch with your friend at work all the time. Affairs sneak up on you. Things like this, sin sneaks up on you. It finds a way to get there. You don't mean it. You don't think it's going to happen. But it will find a way to hit you. And those borders protect you. You know, they did that psychological study where they had the kids play and they had no fence out there in the playground. And all the kids played, and they played really, really close to the school. And then they put up the fence, and they put the kids out. And then they played really, really close to the fence and to other places, because borders give you security. They're not there as do's and don'ts. They're there to make your relationships better. And borders with your spouse, of course, you should agree upon. But borders, if someone is just having a toxic relationship with you, you don't have to agree upon with them. You decide what you're doing, and then you enforce it in a way. And the best way is just by leaving. That's the best way you can enforce it. Or by hanging up the phone. In a nice, and always being nice and kind. Because I don't think you should ever get rid of your children. I'm sorry. I know there's some Christians who are all into getting rid of their children. I don't think you should ever get rid of your children. Thank God I have a Father in heaven who doesn't get rid of me every time I'm a doofus. Because I can be one a lot. I'd rather take that example. And I will never get rid of my children. I don't care what they do. You hear they did something horrible? Know this. I'm still having a relationship with them. They're my kids. God gave them to me. How are they going to see Jesus in me when I'm throwing them out? Same with your friends and same with your parents or anybody else. I am showing you a lasting relationship in the most horrible context I can make. And that is the relationship that Joyce Meyer had with her father. The most horrible relationship. Sexual abuse is the most horrible, I think. I'm sure there's other things horrible. That's got to be right up there, the most horrible. And yet she never totally cut off her relationship with her parents. She never just walked away from them. She always had some contact with them. And when they got old and they were poor, and she's wealthy now. God said, Joyce, move your mom and dad here, get them a place to live, and take care of them. And Joyce says that she said, no. I'm not surprised. Oh, God, did you forget what he did to me over and over and over? You want me to bring him close to my family? You want all the things that would be going through her mind? And God said, yes, that's what I want you to do. Because you're supposed to honor your father and mother. And honor really talks about spending money on them. Taking care of them. Yeah. That's it. And so she did it.
Y'all talk to my kids next week.
I think that's why you brought Ian. It's Mother's Day.
No.
Spend money on your
My
mother.
daughter is a spend. I have to tell her don't spend money on. She's a spend money on me person. But so she moves them there, right? She's driving them to the hospital. She's driving them to the doctor. She's driving them. They can't drive. She's driving them to get groceries. And she's saying, you know, not with a real joyful heart all the time. But her dad gives his life to Jesus Christ in his last years of life. And does God forgive him for everything he did? Oh, yeah. Forgive him. Even though what he did seems so much worse than what I did. God don't see it that way. He sees sin. Now her dad's going to be in heaven. Now she's took care of him. She took care of her mom. Now she did what seems to be impossible because she had real grace for them. She gave them unmerited favor. If there's a person who didn't deserve Joyce to give favor to her, it was that man, her dad. But she gave him favor. Can you imagine how that must have felt for him? She's buying you a house. She's buying your groceries. She's picking you up when you have to go to the doctor. She's all those things. No wonder he gave his life to Jesus Christ. No wonder he went, what kind of person are you that you would still have any inkling of love for me after what I did to you? See, that makes it a lifelong relationship. She was able to have a lifelong relationship with her dad who didn't deserve it, and the whole world would have said, don't even do it, because she followed God's plan instead of man's plan. And there'll be another person in heaven because she followed God's plan instead of man's plan. God's plan's always the best. In every relationship you enter, in every relationship you're in, think of those things. Do you really love them? Are you showing them love? Because you're sacrificial. Do you show them grace and forgiveness? Are they forgiven for whatever's going to happen even, let alone what's already happened? Do you have proper borders so your relationship can last? Then it will be a lifelong relationship. And let me tell you, I used to spend lots of times hearing and speaking from my own mouth that you can't take anything to heaven with you. And I was studying one time and God said, you know, that's not true. I was like, yes, God, a good preacher has told me you can't take everything. I don't know what you're saying, God. And God said, no, you take people to heaven with you. You should take a lot of stuff to heaven with you. There should be a lot of people. Relationships they don't even end at death do us part. They're eternal. And if we do them right, and we show that kind of love, that kind of forgiveness, and we're there through thick and thin, through everything that goes on in their life, I'm going to tell you, they're going to give their hearts to Jesus. Because they're going to see real Jesus in you. They're going to see what the world does, and they're going to see what you do. And it should look different. It should look very different. And then you don't just have a lifelong relationship. You have a forever relationship that goes on into all eternity. Let's pray. Father God, I just thank you for your word, and I thank you that we can have relationships that even go beyond this life. I think of Dave, our pastor, whose mom and dad have both passed, but they both knew you, and his relationship with them will go on forever. other people that we've seen and know, and each of our individual lives who maybe we'll have a forever relationship with. But right now you've planted seeds in our life with people that we have a relationship with now. And we need that relationship to be full of grace. And the only way we can become people who give grace is to ask you, Father, to change our hearts, to change our words, to change our tone, to make us grace givers to other people. And Father, I pray if anybody here has not received grace from you, if they haven't given their heart to you and they haven't been born again, that today they would do it. That today they would say, I believe, Jesus, you're God. I believe you died on the cross for all of my sins. I believe you rose again. I ask you to come into my heart and to change my life. And change me into a grace giver because of the grace you gave us. And Jesus, we know you're faithful to save us. And as I sit here, I think back to the time I accepted you as my Savior. I think other people could think back down to that time and all the grace you poured on us to give us salvation. Father, make us be conscious of that when we're dealing with other people. Let us see you on the cross when someone hurts us, so we know how we're supposed to respond to them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.